When you think of dime novels, what do you think? Most people familiar with them will think of romance and adventures. Think pulp fiction, the genre, not the movie. Pulp fiction is more of a colloquial terminology in Northern American literature culture. It refers to cheap books and magazines that were published in the early 1900s. Popular subgenres included romance, westerns, and detective stories. According to OxfordReference.com, the term pulp stems from the fact that the books and magazines were printed on very cheap type of paper called pulp. While writing materials have been around for as long as humans have wanted to communicate, the paper we know today is closest to pulp paper. Pulp paper is a material that is said to have been invented in 105 AD China by Cai Lun, a court eunuch, who added tree bark and hemp ends to instigate mass production of paper products. The process most likely used in the time of pulp fiction or dime novels uses hardwood and softwood classified trees. Each type of wood would determine what the wood pulp would be used for, from school desks to house desks to paper. Paper is the most common use, and either hardwood or softwood can be used. The process includes breaking down the wood, separating wood fibers, and because the wood will naturally range in color from light dark brown to light gray, there is a bleaching process to lighten paper for print. However, this step may have been skipped in dime novel production. The whole reason? Bleaching costs money, and dime novels gained popularity partially because of their affordability. So while wood pulp can be extracted mechanically or chemically, in the case of cheap paper novels, the process most likely included the prior, where workers manually ground wood with water until the lignin was removed, dried that pulp, and used that dried naturally colored paper for printing. Dime novels are often also conflated with influencing frontierism in the North American West and with touting aspects of slavery. But maybe dime novels are the art imitating life. In the 1860s, the generally accepted beginnings of the dime novel, the Northern American colonies were still reeling from the Revolutionary War and about to embark on civil war. The same civil war that enslaved people and indigenous peoples fought in for their own vested interests. The same civil war that white settler Americans were fighting to either uphold or abolish a two-country nation and to allow or prohibit slavery from expanding to the western settlement states. These people in the North and the South had slaves, worked in an economy that depended on the enslavement and importation of people, and regularly engaged in spreading stories about violence in the West inflicted by indigenous peoples. Not to mention, the controlling culture had specific attitudes about courtship, dating, and romance that reflected the norms of the time. In essence, the attitudes, the social influence, and the stories and ideology were already circulating. Dime novels just gave them a price and an eye-catching book cover. They were also just a brand name in reality. The umbrella term dime novel actually was not widely used until after the reading trends had seen them fall out of favor. Dime novel comes from the first known and widely circulated series of books from a publisher named Irwin P. Beadle. He introduced this pulp fiction as Beadle's Dime Novels, in essence as a marketing device. In one eye glance, you saw the publisher and the price. Dime novels were mainly for adults, but being priced at 10 cents set their bar to entry relatively equal to everyday goods, so all different social classes could partake in reading them. To give a clear picture of pricing, in 1860, a pound of rice cost 7 cents, a dozen eggs were 20 cents, a pound of cheese was 13 cents, a yard of bleached shirting was 10 cents, a quart of milk was 4 cents, and a bushel of potatoes was 59 cents, and a pound of roasted coffee was 23 cents. Another contextual frame is the current events. The beginnings of the dime novel took place on the back end of the gold rush, slated from 1848 to 1855, and the front end of the Civil War, running from 1861 to 1865, and the popular subject matters reflected this. But by the 1870s, Beadle & Co. was not the only pulp fiction publisher on the market selling the affordable books. Dime novels were considered fast fiction, with books coming out roughly on the weekly, which is fast even by today's standards for writing a book. The cheap Brightly covered pamphlets were around 100 pages long and sometimes included more than one story. Dime novels and nickel weeklies could be considered the origins of the literary journal, featuring various writers and artists in a publication that were circulated widely around the country due to postal regulations abilities at the time. Next episode. So what were some popular types of dime novels and who was reading them?